Hello, out of towners. Why did the boy in white push Tabitha out of the lighthouse window? What was the point of her going to Camden, Maine? In this video, I am going to break down what Tabitha's objective was. But before we begin, please note there may be spoilers ahead. Tabitha goes to the lighthouse to find answers that will save Julie, who is trapped in a nightmare. She has Victor take her to the tree that his mother said would lead to the tower. Victor had told Tabitha that his mother was going to the tower to save the children the night she disappeared, and with Tabitha having visions of the children, she believes they want her help. She thinks saving them will get everyone home. As she makes her way up the tower stairs, she hears the children repeating the word Ankui, but when she reaches the top, there are no children. Instead, it is the boy in white who tells her this is the only way and pushes her out of the window. If the children needed saving, then where were they? Why did she hear them but not see them anywhere in the tower? Throughout the show, we only hear the children telling her to remember. They never ask her to save them. This makes me believe they were trying to warn her, and they have always been trying to warn her about the tower. They did not want her to go to the top because they knew the boy in white was waiting for her. But what was he doing there? He was there as a guide to send her out of that world and into the real world to do the entity's bidding. He manipulates her by telling her this is the only way, which makes her think there is something more she must do, a riddle she must solve that he knows she will desperately try to do. And everything that happens once she arrives in Maine is a ruse for a more sinister game. The entity in town knows enough about Tabitha to predict her next moves. It knew she would leave the hospital to avoid being detained by the police. It also knew that once she saw the boy in white waving at her on the street, she would try to catch up to him and end up walking around trying to figure out what to do next. It also knew that once she heard the church bells, she would go there to seek counsel. When she first came to the town in Fromville, she goes to the church to seek counsel from Father Kotri. It used what it knew about her to get her to think she is acting on her own. This is why the boy in white quickly disappears, because it has to make her think she has free will. But remember the nursery rhyme, no one here is free. Tabitha goes to the church and talks to the priest. She becomes frustrated because she can't figure out how to explain her story without sounding crazy and tries to leave. He runs after her and starts asking her questions to stall her. He asks her what her dead son's name was, and then he asks her to show him what Victor made her for lunch. None of this was relevant, but he was steering her towards the lunchbox so that she would think she had found Victor's address. This priest is either the entity or an agent of the entity. I say this because he was wearing the colors purple and yellow on his stole. Remember, Father Kotri wore a stole with clues on it about the town. One side showed the daytime, and the other side showed the nighttime, including the talisman. And if there are clues on Father Kotri's stole, the showrunners most certainly included clues on this priest's stole as well. The colors he wears are a major theme throughout the series, and in the very next scene, we see a close-up of Elgin's shirt with those same colors. I will talk more about this theme in a later video. Tabitha goes to the address in the lunchbox and meets Henry. He explains that Miranda started having visions of the children after an acid trip, which doesn't make a lot of sense, because if her destiny was always aligned with the town, then why would this particular acid trip be the one that brought out those visions? He also says that Miranda says she was chosen to free the children locked in the tower. However, we later find out from Victor that the boy in white told Christopher that he was the chosen one who needed to go through the tree and save the children. So if Christopher was chosen and not Miranda, that would mean that Henry lied, and Henry is not who he says he is. I believe Henry is the entity. Notice the yellow themes in his house, the couch, his shirt, the blankets on the kids' beds. And then there's the yellow tree air freshener in his car window. These themes were placed here intentionally and are clues to his true identity. Henry manipulates Tabitha to get her in the car. He tells her about the original bottle tree in the next town, knowing she would want to see it. Another odd tale because what town would let anyone hang glass bottles from a tree in a public park? I mean, what if the bottles fell and injured someone? It just seems very unlikely. If there were a magic tree in a park somewhere, then more people would have arrived from this location. Remember, the town in Fromville is a place that anyone from anywhere could stumble into, meaning there isn't one fixed location with a portal. But Henry needed to get her into the car because everyone who has been pulled into Fromville was on the road driving somewhere. And Tabitha wants desperately to believe what he says. Tabitha finding the bracelet and questioning her reality was all a ruse as well. He had to stage a way to pull them back into the town, and her hysteria, along with the accident, was the perfect chaos to trick her into believing this was occurring naturally and he was simply a desperate father. His plan was to enter the town posing as Henry in order to influence, distract, and destroy their sense of safety. As Randall noted, nothing here wants to help. The real Henry is dead, and the entity knows that Victor does not remember, just as he didn't remember his sister Eloise. We've already concluded that what is happening in Fromville is part of a cycle that has been occurring for centuries, and we know this from the infinite loop on the cave wall. We have also seen different people from different time periods, and we have learned that Tabitha was Miranda and that Jade was Christopher. This is what the numbers on the wall of the lighthouse indicated, different times in which this cycle has either started or ended. Remember, no one in the show has seen these numbers but Tabitha in her dream, and they are not written on the wall in the lighthouse when she goes through the tower. So, if this is a recurring cycle, this would mean that Miranda didn't come here with just Victor and Eloise. Henry would have been here too, just like Jim is here with Tabitha, Ethan, and Julie. Nothing Tabitha found in Camden bore any clues to help her save Julie or get anyone out. Not the paintings, not the bottle tree, not even Henry. If the real Henry was alive and the entity wanted him, it wouldn't need Tabitha to pull him in. This sinister game was the only way to make her and everyone in town understand that there is no way out and that they should stop looking for one. This infiltration by the entity explains the letters we see on the old ambulance outside of the clinic that spell Troy. This Easter egg was a foreshadow of Henry's arrival into town via an ambulance. Notice the things that happen when Henry is unconscious. During this time, the ambulance encounters the tree in the road, and the entity calls Ethan to tell him that Tabitha is on an ambulance coming back into town. As a matter of fact, the episode of his arrival is called Mousetrap. This ambulance is the Trojan Horse sneaking the enemy into town under the guise of a random event. When they arrive in town, the monsters don't attack Henry or Tabitha. They stand back from the ambulance, just as they had done when the entity was near the RV. They instead help them escape by swapping Boyd the keys for Randall. But keeping Randall was merely a distraction so that Boyd wouldn't think it was odd when they let them go. And later, when Henry goes with Victor into the caves, he tries to convince Victor to turn back several times. He doesn't want Victor to find Jasper, because finding Jasper would mean Victor will start to remember what really happened the night his mother disappeared, which could also make him remember that Henry was there too. And here in the depths of the cave, the monsters could have easily killed Victor and Henry, but they simply give Victor a warning. There is a reason Christopher was upset with the boy in white. If he has been communicating with the boy in white, there must have been something that happened to make Christopher not trust what he says. Remember, Christopher tells the boy in white that everything lies here. And because Christopher wouldn't go, Victor tells Miranda about the tree. When she leaves to go to the tree, there is a nightmare monster waiting for her. It knew someone would come, which means Christopher was right not to trust the boy in white.
Why? Why won't you help us? Because I tried with Christopher.
There are a lot of clues that lead to Henry being one of the entities in this world. His dialogue with the other characters, the white entity being in several shots with him when he's in Victor's room. And if we go back to the paintings on the cave, we see the red entity and we see the people in red, which we believe are the nightmare monsters. And if we look at one of the other things in red, we see what looks like a tower with light shining from it. This clues us into the fact that the tower is an instrument of the red entity, which would mean that it controls what happens there and that Tabitha's escape into the real world was deliberate. Also to note, Victor's red pen is sticking out of his pocket the entire time they are at the tree, and then he stuffs it back down into his pocket when Tabitha goes through. Another YouTuber had brought up the reference to Dr. Mabuse, as we see the name Mabuse on the ambulance equipment. This Easter egg was not to imply that Henry is Dr. Mabuse, or this character is the basis for the show, but it is a clue to tell us that Henry is not who he says he is. Dr. Mabuse was a sinister figure from a series of German books by Norbert Jacques, in which he was a master of disguise who used telepathy and radio to incite crime. He also used objects and employed others to commit evil acts on his behalf. Does any of this sound familiar? Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Is Henry real? Or is this another game designed to break the people in the town?
What exactly makes you think you're going to be the one to figure this out? I imagine a lot of pretty smart people have tried.
I'm smarter.
Okay.
Be sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel as more theories, Easter eggs, and revelations are on the way.